This is that long overdue podcast with the amazing Vicky Shilling, who is a coach that I have admired for years. In fact, when I started out, I got her book to get me started when I really did not know where to begin. It was Vicky's voice of wisdom, her practicality, her no nonsense approach, and her energy is so contagious. I remember meeting her with another dear mutual friend of ours and just being blown away by the energy she has, and being an entrepreneur, being a mother. She is super inspiring. It is a super chat. I'm embarrassed to say it took place in June of 2025, and it's only now that it's going out. And she has been so patient and so understanding, but she is just a warm human. I love how she's pivoting now. I love her approach, her website, everything. Um, and it is time to share our fabulous conversation that happened back in June. And Vicky and I would both love to hear from you. And please give her a follow if you don't already on the usual channels. I'll put them here in the show notes as well. And she's a superhuman, and let her know what you think of the episode, especially for those of you who are budding or aspiring entrepreneurs. This one's for you. Enjoy the episode. A very warm welcome back to Beyond the Norm. And the guest I have this morning is not somebody I ever envisioned when I was reading her book 2 years ago when I was starting out. And it is an absolute honor to have you today, Vicky Shilling. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here. How are you?
Very good. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. Well, let's start with so many of my listeners may not know who you are. So let's do an intro and yeah, get to know you.
Yeah. So my name's Vicky Shilling. I am a business coach and I have had a wild old journey, I suppose, through a decade of working in the music industry based in London. And then I moved to Ireland for an Irishman that refused to leave Ireland, which gave me an opportunity to follow a bit of a passion that I had, which was like my own health and wellness. Actually, I'd kind of hit 30. I was really struggling with IBS, with irritable bowel syndrome, and wanted to just explore what was going on, making changes in what I was eating and how I was looking after myself. And I feel like I opened this little Aladdin's cave of all these incredible people who are training as nutritionists and health coaches and breath workers and meditation teachers, yoga teachers, often burnt out from corporate life and setting up, doing something different, and kind of just immerse myself in that really. I set up a blog and that started winning awards and making me some money. And I realized actually quite a lot of people, my blog was all healthy eating, but I realized people weren't really asking me about healthy eating. They were asking me, how did you set up the blog? How did you start writing this? How did you start making money? How did you get your email list working? How do you use social media to grow an audience? And actually, I realized that was all the stuff that I really loved helping people with. And my community was all of these amazing practitioners who were like, I want to get all this amazing knowledge out into the world. And really plugging that gap, helping people do that. And I suppose over the last few years, that's evolved from lots of practical advice. Here's what to do to get emails, here's what words to write on your website, to realizing that some people could run with that practical advice and some people just hit a wall. Some people just weren't able to implement it in the same way. And that was the bit that really fascinated me, that what drew me to writing the book, Just Start Now, to really dig into what are you thinking? What are you believing? What is happening inside your head when you're presented with these different ways to grow a business, to, attract clients in, customers into whatever it is that you're doing. And that's the bit that's fascinated me. So I've qualified as a certified self-belief coach in the last couple of years as well, and really taking my coaching in that direction because I think it's the bit that's usually missing. We're all given lots of practical advice. In fact, we
Mm-hmm.
can get AI to produce it for, a plan for us. The difference is, why aren't we doing it? So that's the bit that's really fascinating me at the moment.
And I think it's that message that really has drawn me into your content even more and more. And I love and I'm probably going to use that word a lot, I love, because I was devouring even your website again on this idea that, because we think we need loads of self-belief at the start, when in fact we need self-belief every part of the journey as female entrepreneurs. And I do say that about female entrepreneurs. And I have very beautiful, conscious men as well, as clients. And they struggle with other things and self-belief sometimes too. But specifically, I'd love for you to delve into, because you are a self-belief coach, that idea of um, the the presence of it, the absence of it, in particular when it comes to entrepreneurs, how you see that play out. And and I suppose I'm speaking to a lot of people who are starting out as well. And then somebody like myself who's 2 years in and is absolutely full of self-doubt, as well, because it's what we do.
That's
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that, Vicky.
Yeah, I think this was the thing, like I was saying, that I found really fascinating. Basically, self-doubt will show up all the way through your entrepreneurial journey, like you've said. I think there's something about that Dunning-Kruger effect that sometimes when we get started, that naivety is actually quite handy. We're quite excited. We've just qualified. We've just, this is amazing. I'm going to go out and tell the world about it and get filled with, fully booked. And then the more we realize, the longer we're in business, the more we realize what we don't know, we don't know what we don't know, and we come down in confidence and self-belief. And there is what's called on that Dunning-Kruger effect, the valley of despair, which is the very bottom of the curve, where you can absolutely want to just jack the whole thing in because you're so aware of your limitations, of when you're working for yourself, there is no one else to blame. There isn't a bureaucracy, there isn't a boss, there isn't incapable colleagues. It's you. And if things are not happening in your business, it's because of what you have done. Of course, we've all limited resources and things, but ultimately we all get to choose how we spend our time and what we do. And some people are flying with that and some people are not. And that's a really uncomfortable sort of self-development journey that we all have to go on.
Yeah. You could nearly look at that in the day, Vicky, how many times you might hit a valley of despair in the day, not
Yeah,
even over a period of
I
time.
know, and I talk about the
Yeah.
roller coaster, and that's it. Like you say,
Yeah.
like some days it feels like it's happening multiple times a day. Sometimes it might, mellow out a little bit. And I think ultimately, as you go through your business journey, it's how you're able to see that and deal with it and cope with it. So particularly with people running their own businesses, and the way that I've been trained with the self-belief is that we don't call it self-sabotage. We don't hate on it. We don't get angry about the fact that we are doubting ourselves, holding ourselves back, that it shows up as resistance like procrastination, perfectionism, all the P's, paralysis, just not doing anything at all, people pleasing, doing what everybody else is telling you rather than what you really feel you should be doing, passive behaviors, scrolling, shopping, anything that takes you out of the discomfort of I've got to do something new here, I've got to do something different here, I've got to do something that my brain, part of my brain, perceives is a risk. And running our own business, there's lots of those because we have to be quite visible. We have to really own our message, our story. We have to own the transformation we can create in people. We have to communicate that really effectively. We have to, network in some way, whether that's digitally, physically, all of these things that bring up that the protective part of us, so not the sabotage, not sabotaging, but protective part of us that says, don't go there. We don't want to run the risk of rejection. We don't want to run the risk of failure. We've experienced embarrassment before. Why would we want to go and do something where you might embarrass yourself again? And so we can very, like you say, it shows up in different areas because it's very clever. Self-doubt is very clever at shape shifting, at finding ways of keeping you safe, keeping you small, keeping you away from risk. In ways that can very easily be disguised as I'm an incredibly productive procrastinator. I can tell you, I can get a hell of a lot done, but it is not the things that I know would actually
It's
move.
not the frog, or it's
No.
not the one that's going to bring in revenue. And it's like, yeah, you do think really what is, and I love that. Like, what's the point? Because we will, and then you'll think, well, at least I'm productive versus like what's actually important.
everything you're saying is like, yes, yes, yes. And already in my head, I'm already crafting my 2 year anniversary post. And this year, I think I'm going to celebrate all my failures. And one of them is how many times a week I look for a job. That you're like, honestly, and it's not something I talk about at all here because, we're selling the concept that it's all working out for us. And the reality is like that it is, oh my God, I often look at the jobs and go, wouldn't it be easier? But that is my, when the self-belief is like, what the fuck? And that you're looking at that going, and then I'm like, the minute I'm in it, I'm like, no, it's not what I want at all. It doesn't appeal at all. I've walked away from all of that. And it's never to say never, because I'm never going to say never again because I just don't know. Um, but one thing that really, really, really resonated with me, what you were saying there, was that idea of, you know, um, even when the business comes in, myself and another coach friend of mine, we call it quoter's remorse. Where we send the quote. And it's normally to a company. It's not to an individual as such, because with an individual, you've more than likely transparency spoken about it to them in person. But it's mostly to, and I had a great one this week. Oh, just send in a quote. And I'm like, budget, consideration. And I think, no, just go for it. And then you don't hear. And myself and my friend who's coach, we call it like quoter's remorse of like, oh my God, maybe I overcharged, maybe I undercharged, maybe I the actual fuck, and then you don't hear. And then you don't want to be that like just checking in. Um, and I have one right now on the boil. So it's even when we win the business. I have a few of them right now. I've some of them that are even invoiced and you haven't heard back from them. And you're like, hello? Like, "Oh, I want a contract. When are we starting?" So yeah, can you talk to what would resource? Because I know that you work with fabulous people I know, and I know you are that voice of like, come on.
Yeah.
Um,
The love and kick up the bum, my
the
clients call.
love it, yeah. And I always say I don't, charge for kicks in the arse, even though you want me to give you that, but that's not what I do. But you're lovingly kick up the bum. I love that. It's like tied with a bow. Um,
That's it. I'm going to do
yeah,
it with a lot of compassion and kindness, but you've told
yeah,
me this is important. And actually, what we need to explore here is not just giving you more tools, is why
yeah,
aren't you doing it? What is getting in the way?
yeah,
What is your head telling you? And actually, that
yeah,
example you gave, where we send a quote in and we don't if we don't hear back, the question that I come back to in coaching a lot is, what are you making it mean? What do you make it mean when someone doesn't reply to you? What do you make it mean when you post on social media and you don't get a response? What are you making it mean if you haven't hit the income you wanted this quarter? Whatever it is. Because again, that protective part of your head will see it as evidence, collect it in their little file of goodness. Oh, well, that means you're failing. Oh, that means you're an embarrassment. That means you don't know what you're doing. It means you need to go back to a real job. My protective voice says that very loudly. Usually, if I'm up in the night or first thing in the morning, this isn't a real thing. It's not like it, you're just making it up. You need to get a real job. Um, and it will use that as evidence unless we practice. What am I making this mean? I'm making this mean I can't do it. I'm not good enough. They hate me. It was too much. Whatever it is. What else could be true? What else could be true here? And it's not natural for us to do that because again, the protective part is that's how we're wired. Just don't go there. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't write
yeah.
this.
And I straight away, being the systemic coach, I'm going, the place that I've gone to on this one is because I see it so often in my clients and I say to myself, the approval we need from our families, because we're still looking up to a parent figure of some volition or representative of a parent to say, was I good enough? Am I good enough? So I'll always, yeah, bring in that kind of systemic lens of truly, do we need that now? And the little girl in us still does. And it's the big girl's responsibility and the woman to say to the child, We're enough. Even if this doesn't come in, it doesn't matter. You're going to be okay." But it's that solace of, um, and we do. I had a client this week doing something pretty big, and it really came down to what her family thought of her doing it and just walking through what it would feel like energetically if she did have their support, because she might never get it in the 3D, but if she could feel that they really did love and support her regardless of the outcome. And by God, as you and I see it, like we see it on our calls and we see it when we meet our people, like they sit up, the shoulders are back, and it's this like dance of like all that really mattered. And sometimes parents might have passed and they think that those are no longer resources, where they still are. They still have a voice to speak beyond the grave, to say, "You're my girl, go and do it." But so yeah, when you talk to that, I was like, it's the approval we need sometimes from the bigger thing. That yeah, it really is. It's down to that. Like we're like coming home with that, the exam that we got, that, A minus in, or whatever the equivalent is now, 95%, and the parent going, "Where's the 5%?" It's
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. Yeah, and actually, I find so in the nature of my work is really trying to encourage people to, especially as running our own businesses, thinking entrepreneurially, to experiment, to be willing to take risk, to be willing for things to not work out, because we have to do that when we're figuring things out and working out how it works for us, what we like doing, how we make money, how it feels good. But those of us who have been conditioned to achieve academically and go home and, hand in the report and be patted on the head and yes, that's good, and that's how we were considered we achieved love and approval, and didn't, avoided disappointment. That's really hard going into a mentality where we have to try things out and fall flat, and that might not work. Like, that's not a report card we want to be handing to ourselves or to a parent, and that can feel really uncomfortable. And again, I try and see that through the lens of that protective part as well. Our parents really are trying to protect us. They're trying to give us the best advice. And again, it might be a sibling or a friend, family friend, or someone that they're trying their best to keep you safe in the same way that that protective part of your brain is. But the things that they say leave you with such unhelpful stories and beliefs, and like you say, like needs for the approval, the response, the feedback from other people, rather than coming inwards. What do I think? How do I feel about this? Do I want to do this? Does this feel good? Is this what I wanted to do? And that's really, really hard for those of us that have not been conditioned that way.
No, yeah, and that's where, yeah, it's the head, heart, gut that I love to do. There's a practice that it's like, let's stand in the heart. What would the heart really want here? Because the heart always knows, the gut knows, and the head is just always trying to rationalize it all. And look, as you said, like, that, I love the way you said it, like storing away that little evidence to say, "Well, yeah, you didn't, you got it wrong." Exactly. Um, I love all of this, and I know we could spend ages talking on self-belief, but there was other areas that I was intrigued about you that I've rarely seen, and it's really admirable on your website, and it's your ethics and your transparency. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone share and name their privileges the way you have. It is amazing. Can you, for those who may not have ever seen your website, just talk to, yeah, your ethics and this, particularly this piece, this privilege piece, really stands out.
Yeah. I think what's really important, and what I realized coming into the coaching industry, and I've been kind of doing it 6 or 7 years. And so there was a real boom around COVID, of course, when people were considering their options, I think often on furlough and things. That was a very busy time in my business. Was you can see other coaches who are less ethical, let's say, who will trade on, I've done it, so you can do it too. Just buy into my program and I'll teach you how to make X amount of money, or, achieve this level of passive income, the lying on the beach with a margarita and I'm just making all this money and I've got hundreds of clients and everyone's really happy. And what isn't disclosed 99% of the time is what's gone in to making that possible for that one person. And so and it wasn't my initial idea to come up with that privileges page. It was taken from a few other coaches that I could see that were also saying, this is really disingenuous, that we're selling this idea of just buy into my 2 grand program and I'll magically make you, the same amount of money that I do, without saying what financial position you're in, what education level that you already have, what kind of security that you have that some other people don't. Some people do have the ability, maybe through a partner or maybe an inheritance or something, to jack in their entire career and start something new and go in an experiment and give it a go and make it a success. Other people don't have that privilege. And I think it's really important that we say that and explain that. So there have obviously been some things in my life where I am more privileged, and I explain that certainly when I set up my coaching. I was in a really privileged position. I moved in with my husband, boyfriend, and then husband, who would not leave Ireland. But he was in a really, he lived somewhere that he was already paying the mortgage. So I actually had this period of time where I was like, right, I can figure out my coaching business and I don't have to worry about a bill over my head. I mean, we didn't have any children at the time. Like, that was a real privileged time for me to be able to figure that out. That's very different from coaching someone else who maybe does have a mortgage or children or other dependents, other maybe debt or other pressure, other things, time constraints, caring responsibilities, whatever it is, where they're not going to be able to do exactly the same thing that I did in exactly the same way and achieve the same results because of the difference in privileges they have. Same as skin color, same as body shape.
Education. Yeah, yeah, you even give your body size and everything,
Yeah.
which is
Because again, I think it's very easy to say, and I definitely, of course, I'd love to live in a world where we are all treated exactly the same way, regardless of our skin color and our body size. But unfortunately, that is not the case. And it may well be, and I have seen it just a small amount when my way my weight and size have fluctuated a small amount in the last few years, that you are treated differently. Unfortunately, some people in bigger bodies will be treated, there'll be assumptions that they are not good at their job or that they are not disciplined enough or whatever it is that society has put on us and told us, diet culture has told us. Someone in a bigger body is less able to be a business coach, teach me about things compared with someone smaller. For me, a lot of my work was around health and wellness, and that was very prevalent. This small bikini clad, white, usually blonde, clean eating advocate was what was wellness. And the amount of clients that I would have that would say, I don't look like that. I've had 3 children. I'm in my 50. I've retrained. I'm of Asian, descent. I don't look like that. But I still think that's really important. It's really important that we just make a nod to that there are some things that perhaps doors that will have been open for me, assumptions people will have made about me because of how I look, because of how I present. And I would love it that everybody gets the same opportunities and is treated with the same regard, but unfortunately, that's not always the case.
yeah, and it's so honorable, and like I've had supervisors that were like, your ethics are nearly getting in your way of being a good coach because you're so ethical. And I'm like, no, I just have such a strong value of mine in other ways, but you've really opened my eyes up to so much, and just what you've said there, Vicky, that is so powerful. Um, and I love you said on another interview as well, and I think I have it too, that what's the worst that could happen? I always love the question, what's the best thing that could happen? But that we go to that worst place as humans, so we're biased towards negativity, that you and I could have gone home to our dads, that there was a place there. And I still have that. And I love it. So, a few other coaches talk about, what's the, when you take the risk of, like, the Americans talk about, oh, I'll just move back into my mom's basement, or, whereas, we have like, well, I could go home to my father. And you said the same. And I really related to that because it was like, okay. And I, I still think that, I'm so lucky, and I don't take for granted that I have one parent that is still alive. And I don't abuse that privilege at all, but it is there. And when you see what can happen in America, where you can lose your home tomorrow morning and end up living in a car, for taking a risk, we do live in a country that has, a social state where there are supports. And I saw that with India as well, which bizarrely gave me a bit of comfort because when I was in India after I left corporate, I took this big trip to India. And I knew it was going to make me appreciate everything I had, down to a cup of tea, Like, when you've been away to somewhere, like you can't even get a good cup of tea, that, you still on days go, oh, it's so good to have tea. And I drink rooibos. I don't even drink Barry's. Like, I'm such a fraud. But anyway, it's that idea that it allowed me to come home and say, no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay, even in the doubt and the self-belief. And by God, you have to be really brought back to that grounded place so often. So I really appreciate your honesty there. And I know that's one of your values. Um, you also, and it definitely, you and I can definitely relate to that, this idea of get it done, like your book, right? Which I really like offline. I'm going to have to pick your brain, like how disciplined you were to write a book, because that's there as well. And it was brilliant, Vicky. Like I sat right behind here is where I meditate, and I used because I had so much self-doubt when I started first, and I did need a book like that, literally. And I used to underline it, just read a chapter at a time. And I come back to it, and I would sit there cross-legged, and that was how I started my day because I really didn't know how to start. Like I had gotten the dream of leaving corporate that I had so dreamt of, and I was filled with fear of what if I get it wrong? Like I didn't have a website for the first year because it was like, well, there was no point because I didn't know what to say. And that website nearly broke me. And like, it's such a not irrelevant part of my business now. And I see other entrepreneurs that build up to that meaningful moment of a launch, like a website, and how the minute it's passed, it's like next. And like you go in and update it all the time now because it's never a fixed asset. Um, that idea of just start now and get it done in the lens of systemic coaching, who was that in your family that kind of taught you that we just need to get it done and that's important?
That's a really interesting question. It's more my mum. So my dad jokes that when I go round to him, they'll have stacks of paperwork and they haven't quite managed to get that working on the computer. And I'm the one going, right, let's get this sorted. And whatever it was that they've been sitting on for the last few weeks, I get it. I clear it. I clear the desk. I get that done. Right, Dad, that's done. Bish bash bosh, sorted. So it's definitely not my dad. Probably more my mum. She was a single parent, bringing us up, me and my sister. Um, and yeah, she just got stuff done. And I was talking to my coach about this actually last week. This idea that if you start something, you damn well finish it. So my family are musicians. That's why I worked in the music industry for a long time. They're both classical musicians. And so when I was 5, I wanted to learn the violin. They were both horrified. They played the trumpet and the trombone, the idea of a string player, and not very, not very
I
attractive.
love it.
I know, but they were like, okay, but again, the deal was if you're going to do it, you have to do it properly. You're all in. You need to practice. That's how it works. Yes, yes, I promise I'll practice. Of course, like any child, kind of the waves and things that went up and down, but it became a big part of my life. It enabled me to travel. I joined the youth orchestra. It was something I could do at university. It did enable me to go all over the world. So and set up a career for me. But yeah, it was very much if you're going to do something, you do it properly, you follow through on it. And actually, what I do get from my dad, and I like not to talk, not that he doesn't get anything done, is that reliability, that sense of reliability. If someone asks you, he says that now. Well, he used to say that when I worked in the music industry. When he'd see his friends, they'd say, "Vicky, when you ask her to do something, she actually does it." And again, it's interesting, isn't it? Talking about those values. I don't think honesty should really be such a surprise. I don't think getting stuff done should be a surprise, but it's just inherently who I am and how I show up. I talked to my dad about it just the other week, just the flaky friends, the ones that cancel. Like, I'm not that person. If you're going to ask me to do something, I will absolutely see it through. That's not always a positive thing.
No, I was about to say the polarity of
Yeah.
that when I think now, because even you this morning, by the way, like Vicky has loads on, and I knew she would be here. And it's amazing. And I'd be similar, but the weight of that responsibility of always being that friend, always being that mother, always being that coach for the other, and you and I lying awake going, oh shit, I didn't do that. When that flips into the extreme polarity, how do you manage that? Because the self-belief, I'm sure I didn't get it done, and I said I'd get it done. How do you resource yourself for those days, Vicky? And in particular, motherhood, I'm sure, because that's something I can't speak to. But I know you are such a great mom that the the tug, the tug of war between a client and a child.
Yeah. I think it's been the hardest leap. The short answer, Laura, is I don't handle it brilliantly all the time. I think it is that acceptance that you cannot be, certainly coming into parenting too has been the biggest leap for me, and realizing I cannot be who I was completely, as in a part of my brain will always now be need to be available for those children and worrying and wondering about what I need to be doing for them. And so who I was, how I was able to service my business, who I even was as a partner and a friend and a daughter and sister, will never be quite the same. And actually just letting the standards drop a little bit on things, just accepting I don't send Christmas cards anymore. I can't always do thank you cards for people. I miss people's birthdays and have to send stuff afterwards. That I don't get back immediately to clients, but I do have that built into, contracts and things, that there is a kind of, a buffer there, that I'm not expected to do that. We all do need to have boundaries with it. And that I try and stay, when I'm working, and when I'm present with the children, I try and stay as present with the children as possible. But I do think it's really difficult. I'm still adjusting. I'm only just out of the first year of parenting too, of just realizing, wow, it's really different now for me, and how I manage everything and don't ever feel like I'm completely on top of any area of my life is something I'm going to have to adjust to, and just find peace with, just accept, just
Yeah.
have those little moments of
Mm,
this
mm.
feels really good right now, or I'm fully present in parenting right now. It's just trying to
Yeah.
have the tiny moments
And
instead.
it's the compassion that some days it's not going to work and it's shit and I feel like shit because I don't get to be who I would like to be and who I am. And it's the I'm okay as I am today. The Don Miguel, it's the four agreements. It's the last agreement that is like, what's your best? And some days your best is fuck all, but it was your best, you know, that it's like, okay, that was enough for today. And I'm really conscious of that. I'm always very conscious of my not motherhood. And obviously it's a big part of my story, but I'm really conscious when I work with women who are. In particular now in this growing into the entrepreneur space, the juggle. And I love what you said earlier, just because how I did it is not how you're going to do it. I do have more time in my day. Like I don't have somebody else pulling out of me. In fact, I have said the words out loud this week. I want an au pair for me. I want an au pair. I'm just saying that out there. If anyone wants to, come work for me as my au pair, I'd be really happy with that. I'm like, I need an au pair. Um, and if you saw my neurodivergent house, you would say that I would need an au pair too, and probably need a chef as well and a few other bits. But that idea of, yeah, how can you be an entrepreneur and a mom and a friend and a sister and all those different roles we play and feel successful because the parameters of what is success have totally shifted. And it's not, I love actually, if you follow Vicky on Thread, she's absolutely brilliant. She just calls out all the bullshit. She's such a breath of fresh air. And it's that like, I went from 10K to 1 million in 6 months, and I'm still a mom,
Just with a PDF, Norma, just
Yeah,
just a
yeah, yeah,
PDF.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's fucking brilliant. I love when you do that, Vicky, because it's just like, yes, everyone from the corner cheering you on, going, go on, Vicky, go on. So that idea, yeah, like what is a barometer of success now and how that's shifting because it's so not the same anymore, I'm sure.
No, I just, when you say that, I have to say this stage of my life, it's the fact that I still get up in the morning, that I still do all of these things, that I still give everything my best shot that I possibly can in all of those areas of life, and that I'm willing to just experiment and give things a go, and that it doesn't always work out, and that I'm not always 110%. I definitely think in my 20s, I do keep saying to my husband, I do think Vicky in her 20s would be absolutely horrified with some of the stuff that's coming out of my mouth now. Just where I've just had to go, I just don't care anymore. That just isn't important anymore. Trying to make it absolutely perfect or pristine, or, people pleasing up to the max. I can't. Success now looks like financial ease, being able to book holidays, you know, having that kind of ability to, I think financial freedom at the moment is, you know, going to buy a coffee, or, you know, adding something else into your supermarket shop, because for some people it is getting tighter and tighter around those things. So that kind of level of ease, and just being able to say, I'm still showing up in all of these areas, that I might not be doing it perfectly, but actually I'm okay with that. I'm increasingly okay with that.
And that's amazing. And I think it's something that, you know, we really, really to appeal to our listeners, that every day is going to be different. You know, motherhood, not motherhood, because caring, right? We're you and I are that sandwich generation, older parents as well, and different priority needs, and there's other caring responsibilities that can really take from what we might have wanted in the past, and how we help ourselves. Two more questions. One I'm going to give you in advance that you can think about while you're talking about the other, and it will be around this idea of beyond the norm, right? That's my podcast title, my business title. And yeah, that what would that mean to you and what you see? But in the meantime, I'm going to ask you this question, which is your favorite client success story. And it possibly is around the self-belief piece. Um, because as you and I know, we are not instructors, we are facilitators, we are guides. Um, and I, you know, working with my own coaches as well, like, yes, there's YouTube and AI now for everything. You can figure anything out if you really want to. That's not to say you and I are not somebody there to help support, but it's not where we find our joy. So yeah, talk to me about like that. Obviously anonymous, really favorite client success story that gives you joy, because you and I love when we find our ideal clients, but when our clients find their ideal clients as well. So yeah, who's that go-to story that like lifts your heart and keeps
Yeah.
you going?
The shift that I've made in the last kind of 6 to 12 months is stepping away, like you say, from the like practical advice, and really stepping into, this is more pure coaching as we would know it, and self-belief coaching in particular, really taking people on that journey of, like we started to touch on, where is this coming from? What are these stories that's happening? And what is getting in the way of you achieving what you want in your business? So my favorite client is one that came to me that I've worked with before. So she and I, you know, there was a history there. She was actually one of my very first clients. I think she must have done a free program with me for 6 months initially, and she's come back at various points in her journey, and she just was feeling really stuck. But the perfect ideal client for me is someone that says, look, I don't need any more of the tactics. I know what I should be doing. I know all the tools available to me. I know I can use AI to come up with a, you know, marketing plan or whatever, but I'm not doing it. I'm feeling stuck. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm comparing myself to everybody else. I'm watching everybody else saying all the things that I wish I was saying, and feeling like I've missed the boat now. And just attracting clients that weren't particularly aligned to her either, that weren't doing the work and things. She was a nutritionist. And that was some of the most fun work, to work with her across 3 months, not on anything practical. We never really, we had a little look at her suite of offers. And again, it started getting into, I need a pyramid, it needs to be like this. And let's just strip that away. Let's just look at what are the stories at play here. We knew already there was a big story from her parent. Working is not fun. She was divorced in the past. So there was a big story around making good decisions. I can't make good decisions. I made a terrible decision about my ex-husband. I'm not very good at making decisions in my business. Again, that's sort of academic achievement ones, and just worked on those. It's really subtle, really fun work where we just tease it out. We talk about it. That's really interesting, isn't it? What else could we believe in here instead? What else can we try out? I'm big on this experimentation method. Right, this is a new belief that we're going to install in here instead. Let's see how that plays out this week. Let's try it out. Let's see how you can embody it. And just the shifts and the changes is so fascinating with her. She was starting to hit her financial goals again. She launched a retreat with someone else and it sold out within a few weeks. And she was like, I would never, ever have done that before. It was messy. She was like, I would have perfected it. I would have agonized. We just put up a sales page and it just sold out. People want another one. She made another offer, which actually decided to turn down, where she could be a kind of in-house nutritionist, with a lovely like spa company. And she was like, I just trust my own decisions more now. I don't feel like I need to perfect everything. I just get get on and do things. I just start with it, and I just trust that everything will work out. That who I am inherently and how I do my work is needed. She got on the local radio and was like, "Oh, I'm actually talking about my way of doing things." So I just love that kind of transformation, that real shift of feeling stuck, feeling full of comparison, knowing she wanted more for her business, but it just wasn't coming, and she didn't see beyond where she was, to all these other income sources coming in, feeling like she could fully take up space, say what she wanted.
It's
Um,
the energy piece that comes with the authenticity when the belief is there, and authenticity is the highest energetic vibration there is. So, because it comes from the heart, that's where authenticity comes from. So, by that very fact of her stepping in more and more to her heart space, it vibrates it and comes back. Yeah, that's the good stuff. It really is, isn't it? And it's just amazing to see it. Yeah.
yeah, I
Look
don't
at you
need to.
smiling.
I
Like,
know,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
don't need to
your
teach you a
energy.
funnel. I don't need to teach you copywriting. I don't,
No,
like
because
you.
it'll be authentic to her when she does it. Yeah. I'd say some of my business coaches like absolutely fawn when they see the state of some of my sales page copies. But people aren't buying my great copywriting skills or my shit AI interpretation. It's like, I just want to work with Norma. I just want her energy. I want that. And the same with you, Vicky. They're like, I just want that, and that's why it's as well. I think there's something that you and I can really, really meet now because we're a few years into it. I'm only 2 years into the business, but I'm a few years into the coaching. It's there because of you and I's authenticity and all the other coaches that there are. There's so much room for all of us because ultimately it's I vibrate with you. It is, and we're meeting each other where we're at.
And that feels quite bold, I think, to own that, because
Mm,
there's a lot of sense, certainly over here, and I think there's a lot of it in
mm,
that idea of notions. Who do you think you are? That people just want to work with you just because of who you are, like, but
yeah,
actually that is where we all need to get to, and particularly in a world where
yeah,
generic advice can just be pumped out. Who are you in this? Can you
yeah,
stick your head above the parapet, and
yeah.
we can say, this is how I do things, and you want to come and work with me, whatever it is that I'm talking
Exactly.
about
And
selling.
I'm always the first to say, actually, I'm not right, but actually maybe Vicky is or Karen or whoever it is. And we all obviously send our people to Eva for photographs, and it's like it's that kind of like vibe within the community now. But it's also I got really a brilliant research one recently and they're like, but I don't want to go to them, I want to go to you. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, thank you. Shit. What? Right, am I good enough?
See you again.
It was really interesting. It was a brilliant research call. She was like, I don't want to hear about anyone else. I know you haven't it figured out yet, but when you do, I'm here. I'm ready.
And that's the biggest honor, and that's why we
Yeah,
create things like podcasts and content, and we speak and we show up on social media, or we network, whatever it is.
yeah,
Whatever, I don't want anyone to think they have to do it a certain way. There's so many ways to show who you are. I've started on Substack, long form writing, which I really love, but
yeah,
book as
yeah,
well. Like,
yeah,
there's so many ways to show that, but that is the privilege of doing this, is that people will come into your world and they're happy with, like, you tell me and I will sign up. I don't even mind
yeah,
what. I just trust that what
yeah.
you put out there will be what I need,
What
or
we need.
get something from it, which is
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah, it really is. It really is. So last question is this idea of yeah, it's coming back to the authenticity piece and beyond the norm because it's not somebody who was I like was in it was I have an amazing story of how I got to the name that I have. And initially the person offered me with above the norm and I was like, no, 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 because that would be that notion that I'm bigger than you. I'm all about sizing and systemic coaching. It's all about being the right size. But this idea of being beyond, beyond what structures and conditioning and stories and all of that. Yeah, what for you, a simple question, what does beyond the norm mean to you and how do you see that play out in your own life?
When you say that to me, and when I hear those words, it comes back to those values we said on that page, that idea of radical honesty, I suppose, normalizing this process that we've talked about, those moments of, I'm going to go back and get a job, or I can't do this, or it's not going to work, or descending into tears on a regular basis, and normalizing that for people, because I think a lot of people interpret that as, I am not cut out for this, I can't do it, whatever it is in their life, whether it's setting up their own business or something else, and just normalizing that self-doubt. Like I'm always feel like I'm walking a precarious balance. Am I being an authority enough, whilst also being really honest about, but this is what it really looks like, this is what it feels like, and this is what I'm doing inside my head to really work on that. But I want to normalize that as much as possible for people, that it's not all shiny and big wins and
PDFs for $1 million.
that's it. PDFs that teach you everything for $9.99, or Stripe notifications, which a sales coach told me the other week. There's an app that you can just recreate Stripe notifications and pretend that you've made the money that you're claiming to make. So again, that kind of dishonesty with it, just that radical honesty of, this is what it feels like. And when I hear my clients say, I'm feeling this doubt, I'm feeling this worry, great, you're in the game, you're doing it, like, this is it, now we're really cooking, because it means you're stretching, it means you're really feeling that risk, meeting that protective part of yourself and going, I hear you, and it's crazy, but I'm still going to do it anyway. And really connecting, like you help your clients with what I call the true experimenter, the real part of you that knows that you are wildly capable, that doesn't have that doubt and that worry and all those stories and fears that come from parents and from the school playground or whatever it was, standing up on that podium at work 10 years, 15 years ago. That just is quietly confident and knows that you've absolutely got it. So yeah, for me, it's breaking out of all of that perpetual, it's all great and shiny and wonderful, and going, no, the reality is it's quite scary and quite exhilarating, and there's moments of doubt, but it means you're in the game, it means you're doing it.
Yeah, because if you're not, it means you don't care, I think, as well. If it's not scary, it means it doesn't matter. Whereas when it's really fucking scary, part of that story is because you really, really care. And it's when it goes toxic. So that's when we need the coaches, and we need our the guides and the experts that, that understand what it is, what it feels like. Love that, love the radical honesty. I had a fellow peer entrepreneur who told me, like, you're being a bit too honest about how it's not working at the start. And I get that. And that was a man. I get that idea of a conscious man, albeit, but he was right maybe at the start. But like, as I said, I'm about to hit the 2 year, and I'm really, yeah, I'm really conceptually drawing up like this idea that, yeah, and there'll probably be a podcast, maybe a Substack, who knows? I'm on too many platforms. I have to focus. The neurodivergency comes in. I'm like a magpie. What will I do next? Can you just work on what you have? Vicky, an absolute pleasure, as I knew it would be. Absolutely. People like you who pave the way for people like me to come behind you. And that's when you write a book and you don't know, because I only told Vicky really quite recently that I read her book, because it was I just never, there was no reason why I did not tell you, but it was like yeah. And actually, I don't have it now anymore because I passed it on.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad.
With all the underlines and the dog ear pages and everything, it's like, yeah, that needed to go to somebody else. So it's like the energy, big magic, that idea of like the thought has, well, I've started now, so why would I keep a book on starting? As you say, I'm well underway with the self-doubt.
You're in it,
I'm
you're in
in it.
it.
Vicky, I will share all your information on this. Anything just before we go, that what's next for you? I know you've finished out an old program and you're really, really starting on this new program. What would you like to share to our listeners?
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is find me on my website, vickyshilling.com. Really, next phase for me is going deeper on this self-trust, self-belief thread. I run a group program called the Sales Belief Experiment. So again, looking at no clever, tactics, but how can we change your beliefs and see if that brings in more sales for people running their own businesses, and really showing lots of behind the scenes of how I work with kind of belief experiments and thought experiments to build trust in myself over on my Substack as well. So yeah, it's the best
Well,
way.
I'll be watching, and I know it's going to be amazing, and lucky clients that get to be part of that, because it's going to be really special. So I'm going to stop the recording, but thank you so much, Vicky.
Thank you for having me.
A huge thank you for listening to Vicky and I and our honest chat back in June. I hope you agree with me that she is an absolute breath of fresh air. Please check out in the show notes her details to follow her, subscribe to her newsletter, and yeah, she's a fountain of knowledge more than I ever am. She's in this business a lot longer than me. And yeah, let her know and us know what you think of the episode. Also, if you can like, share, subscribe, review, share it with a friend that's going through something similar. I really, really always am so grateful for all of you who listen here. And for now, I will bid you good luck, and I hope to have another episode out just before Christmas. So in the meantime, take care of yourselves and chat very soon.